All right, guys.
4 days. Oh, is it started?
You know what? We're just gonna leave it.
Yeah. Let's do this. Here we are.
Anyway, without further ado, then welcome to the Discovering Eden podcast. My name is Brandon,
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Mardik.
and we're having a grand old time.
Oh yeah, great.
Ever heard of the definition of winging it?
Is that this week?
Totally.
This brings this week to a whole nother level. Especially since we're talking about Griffins.
Yeah, wings. Wings, absolutely.
They got wings. They're also the affiliate of the Detroit Red Wings, but that's besides the point. But anyway, we need prayer in more ways than one, and then we'll get into the bumper and get right into it. So, without further ado, let's get to it. All right, dear God, please help.
Greatest prayer of all time.
Honestly, I kind of want to end it there. But anyway, God, I know that our weeks are busy, chaotic, everything like that. I pray that you just kind of speak through us, speak through the things that we're learning about culture and through different mythologies and the like, and what you have to tell us in the midst of all that. And I pray that you would just be with this conversation and let people hear what you need them to hear, and let us not go too far off track. But that's kind of inevitable, and you know this, Lord. But anyway, just thank you again that we were able to even do this. I just pray this all in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Bumper. Let's do the bumper. And this time I'm not going to hit stop recording as soon as the bumper finishes.
Maybe just for funsies later.
I guess you'll find out.
It's not loading, that's my problem.
What a great thing to come back to. It's not loading. Go ahead.
I've got Gorgons and Medusa and everything before that loaded, and then Chimera. I have the picture loaded, but...
Oh, yeah, there's nothing on it.
Oh,
I didn't give it a chance. So,
nothing on the slideshow. Okay, so...
for those who don't know, you know how we've shown a nice slide, Google slide kind of image with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, this week doesn't have it because busyness crept in, and I literally worked on things like right before recording. So
Hence we're winging it
hence we're winging it.
on the Griffin wings.
Yep. Fly on the wings like eagles.
Fly, you fool!
Oh, is that a griffin?
I mean, it was a giant eagle, so...
Yeah, exactly. Host eagle, probably. Or was it a griffin? The world may never know. Only J.R. Tolkien.
You're good.
Anyway, we already went off track.
Yep.
As per usual.
Griffins.
It's called stalling.
It's a fine art.
If we hit an hour and don't talk about what we need to, maybe we can do it next time.
So kind of going back to what we talked about last week with Nagas and relationship with Seraphim, they also have Seraphim also have relationship to Griffins, specifically like Egypt and the spiritual side of things there. But there's also a side of Griffins that side with cherubim, notably with like the Gate of Ishtar and the things that adorn the temple walls or different things like that. What are they? Well, it's like a lion body and an eagle head.
Yep.
Or something like that, or whether it's a lion's body, wings like an eagle. Same kind of thing. It's a lion being beast with wings, sometimes anthropomorphic. Bada bing, bada boom, it's a cherubim. Or at least especially when you think of, oh, okay, so God tells the Israelites, all right, so you're to make cherubim, and you make it on the Ark of the Covenant, and you make it on the temple walls, and everything. Where is this idea of a cherubim coming from? How would they know what to draw, illustrate, whatever it is? Well, part of what we're talking about today is where some of these illustrations may have come from or originated from. Now, it's not to say that the cherubim himself don't exist. It's saying it in a way that people could understand it to be. So the Israelites, well, they understand what their limited minds can comprehend. So what things have they come into contact with that share the same kind of philosophy, ideology? Well, that's going to inform how they view it in later episodes. Like, for example, if you were to hear from God, and however that may be, and receive a vision of something absolutely bizarre, how is God going to speak to you? Or how do you think God is going to speak to you? He's going to speak to you in ways that you can understand. Is he going to speak to you in another language? No, probably not, because you're not going to understand a lick of what he said. God speaks in ways that we can comprehend him, ways that we may interact. So, for some of these things that we see in the Bible, so like cherubim, seraphim, or different things, how they are super similar to things that we see outside of the Bible in secular views bears credibility to this, I think. Because it's things that they would have already seen and observed in their context. And we even still see them today. So, baseline right there. We'll dive, obviously, a little bit deeper into it. And I guess I should mention this ahead of time. So, Chimera is like one of the big things that I have for cherubim and their similarities between the two. Griffins are a form or type of chimera because chimeras are
Kind of this
two. Yeah, it's an amalgamation of different animals that we know of. So, lion and eagle amalgamized to griffin. To be honest, I also kind of see Sphinx almost in the same kind of amalgamation.
My mind kind of even jumps to like the fawn, and Narnia, kind of that. I don't know if that would count because it's man and animal, but kind of still this.
So you're talking about a centaur.
Yeah, I mean, centaur.
Yeah.
Well, the fawn, Mr. Tumnus.
Yeah.
that
Well,
kind of-
okay.
Yeah, that's.
Centaur, Minotaur, like they all kind of fall
Yeah.
into that satyr.
Which
Yes.
will be talking satyr being in the Bible. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to touch on that a few weeks ago.
It was a couple weeks ago for those who don't know. I don't even remember what episode.
It was a while ago.
It was the Seraphim one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it was King James something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a very
It's the
interesting.
only version.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa!
Yeah.
They went way, way different direction. Who knew that was in the Bible, huh? But yeah, let's start with Griffin, as that's one of the things that we know of, probably the most of all the other things that we'll be talking about today. So Griffin, they're like everywhere. When you think of mythologies, like they go all the way back to ancient Egypt, like 5,000 years ago, whatever, and you see it throughout history from that point onward. They had significance. Often were protectors of both divine and human, especially with Egypt being kind of under the wing of Horus, which is like head of the eagle, but God. Kind of, I think I've already mentioned like similarities between Horus and Moses, different things like that, and even with Jesus himself as well. But beyond that, yeah, Griffins. So when we think of them, we think of like it's eagle head, lion body with wings.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on the depiction, front claws might be eagles' claws too. Like
Talons.
or talons, yeah. Right. Yeah, so I mean, looking into all this, that's obviously the first thing I think about. And it's thinking about all of this and all these different creatures, I came to the realization that a lot of my knowledge about all this stems from D&D.
Oh, heck yeah.
Because they pull from so many different
That
things.
or video games,
Yeah.
and you wonder where they get all their information.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh, I wonder where.
Right. But the Griffins and that, one of the fascinating things to me, like just doing the research on all this too, was that, okay, we've made the jokes about, we're winging it today, which we clearly are. But, looking back, like I didn't even realize that it came from Egyptian, like that was the origin, or Mesopotamian or whatever, like that was 5,000. I always thought of it as Greek origin. And that was where most of my knowledge about Griffins comes from. But even within Greek origin, there was an 800-year-ish period where they didn't think of them as having wings, which was mind-blowing to me. It was Pliny the Elder, I think was his name, who was the first one in the first century to say, hey, these things have wings too. Like, which you think, okay, amalgamation of a lion, king of the beasts, and eagle, king of the birds.
King of the birds, yeah. So the royal and loyal kind of aspect to it, and that has that divine nature as well. But you see that in Egypt. So the fact that they think of it without wings, which wings usually signify that divinity aspect, the fact that they saw it before wings is interesting.
Yeah. That was, I don't think I'd ever heard of that or read about that before until today, really.
And to me, I know I spoke, and I kind of view Griffins in the same mindset as I do Anzu, which we'll talk about next. In that I think it could be a dragon / dinosaur, whatever you want to call it. So, if you were to describe, again, and I know I've used this example before, if you were to describe a dragon or a dinosaur to somebody who doesn't know what it is and is not in the diction, how would you describe it? And considering, dragons weren't in Egyptian mythology, dragon appeared in Persian and Babylonian and different things like that, but Egypt predates that. They have griffins, which are, body of a lion, wings of an eagle, or whatever like that. But the fact that, say, even in Greek, may not even had wings. So are they different? Are they different depictions of griffins? Or are they actually referencing an actual animal that it could have been likened to, that fit a lot of the similarities? It has the ferocity of a lion. It has the nature and all-seeing thing of an eagle, or something similar to that. And I kind of view griffins a little bit more symbolically, just because. But it's not like I don't doubt something like that existed, especially a bird, because we know there were big birds. Haast's eagle in New Zealand being one of them, so it could have been the one Gandalf and everything was riding in, because it was based in New Zealand for the movies at least, so that makes sense if you think about it that way. But Haast's eagle had 10-foot wingspan, just massive eagle. Basically feasted on moas, which were 10 feet tall in New Zealand. So they're big. The ferocity of the lion, picks up children. They don't ride on their back, maybe in their belly, but interesting stuff. So kind of going back to Anzu, we talked about it a little bit when we talked about our pal Mushy, and I know we keep bringing Mushy up. Mashushu, the dragon. Anzu was viewed as a beast that actually existed, and this is within the things. I kind of looked a little bit into the Epic of Anzu, different things like that. I mean, there's definitely it's more of a beast. It's either referred to as like dragon or demon, different things like that. But again, has like the body of a lion, wings, feathers, that kind of thing, kind of surrounding it. But you could also like, based on its depiction, it could be scales. Like who knows? Either way, it didn't look like any bird that you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I found out when looking up Anzu also is like used in context also with thunderstorms. So with this idea of thunderbirds and different things that you see in North America also coming into play. It's fascinating because a lot of these things, they're found worldwide. All these different kind of birds and animals like that. So it's like, they could be dragons too, because dragons are found worldwide. It's interesting whether you think of it as a bird or a dragon or something. It's just really fascinating. Obviously, there's little bits of narrative and story behind some of these things to push these along, but it's really interesting to think about. So, onto Sumerian myth. So, again, really old. So this is where you get your Epic of Gilgamesh and different things like that. The flood myth, creation myth. You have some of these things along in Sumerian myth and culture as well. So are some of them related in some way? Could possibly be. Let's see. Did I talk about everything there? Yep. All right. Again, we're winging it. You're just getting that now. We've been saying
I got it from the beginning. It struck me as particularly funny that time.
At least these griffins have wings.
So I know we're talking about this in in respect to cherubim. So let's go into some of the more Hebrew side of things. So something that I never even knew existed before looking it up is something of an animal called Ziz. Z-I-Z. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, that was a new one for me too.
It's Jewish, like Hebrew mythology or tradition, like from rabbinic tradition. And it's something like I've never heard of this before, and maybe it's because we don't speak Hebrew. As probably the base of that, because it's like, apparently, Ziz is one of the trinity between Leviathan and Behemoth. And then you also have Ziz. So you got Ziz, which is the commander of the skies, if you will. You have Leviathan, commander of the waters. I say commander, they're like king of whatever.
Yeah.
Top dog, or bird, or fish, or whatever you want to call it. And then obviously Behemoth being king of the land. So they're thought of as really massive. And I think some of these could also be in relation to other myths that are also around, because like we talked about with Leviathan and Behemoth, some of these could have actually originated elsewhere. It's just they're also understood in contrast to rabbinic teachings and everything like that as well. So what exactly there from that point? I'm no expert. I just look things up. A little bit beyond Wikipedia, but just trying to also gain an understanding of what it is. And hopefully so that you guys can understand what it is too. Because I do think it is interesting. So you have Behemoth, Leviathan, Ziz there. Reminds me of something, and this is also mentioned, oddly enough, on Wikipedia as a connection point, which I find very odd, of Rayquaza, Groudon, and Kyogre.
Which seems fitting.
And this kind of goes with the idea of balance. So Ziz being the balance between Leviathan and Behemoth. It has that protector kind of, I don't want to say like yin yang kind of balance thing, but
yeah, that's
this,
Retro Robin Zekrom.
yes, but this balance thing and even Trinities is not, just a Hebrew or Israelite idea. You see it elsewhere, obviously yin yang, different things like that. There's balance, there's aspects of it there, and there's obviously a lot of teaching narrative behind some of these, probably beyond the scope of what I can even understand or know, because I've never even heard of it in the first place. But it's interesting because it's like Rayquaza, Groudon, Kyogre. You got land, sea, air. Ah, I get it. But Rayquaza doesn't have wings. But that's besides the point.
It's a dragon in
He's
the
up
air.
there.
It's
It's
a
an Eastern dragon.
Yeah, it's a dragon. But yeah, it's interesting. And apparently, like Ziz, it has this celestial aspect to it. Can hold up the stars, but like you see all that kind of language and imagery and a lot of the obviously myth and legends, different things like that. You see that with Bahamut, all that kind of stuff as well. But something I didn't know is this is mentioned in the Bible. It's just in Hebrew. So it just translates it differently in the English, so we don't even know it's Ziz. Because it translates it as beasts. Like from the mountains. Beasts from the mountains, or different things in other ways. So one of these places is Psalms 50:11. So I think you have that pulled up, Jonathan.
Psalm 50:11. I know every bird in the mountains and the insects in the fields are mine. You want me to keep reading further?
So in this example, birds of the mountains is Ziz, which in the English it says it as multiple of birds, except Ziz is a singularity. Or at least from what I'm aware of. But also, now that I think about it, it could also probably be plural, since Behemoth, I think, could also be plural.
What would be the plural of Ziz? Zizzes?
Ziz.
Would it be like
Zai. Ziz. Buzz. It'd be a good Scrabble word.
It's like the Brian Regan joke about moose. What's the plural for moose?
Me.
Meese! Moosin! It's like... That's where my mind immediately... Ziz it!
Ziz?
It's sleeping all the time. No, but it's interesting. Shoot, this is where I kind of regret not having the Hebrew. I'll put it in the description below, where the Bible Hub has the Ziz in there, so you can take a look for it yourself. I just don't have a screen to put it to. Yep, winging it. And then I wanted to bring up, this is something I kind of added later. So the bird Rock and Garuda. So Garuda being more a Hindu and Buddhist, and then Rock being more Arabian or Middle Eastern. So we'll start with Rock, because I thought of it first. And then we'll go to Garuda, which I know a little bit less about, but
It's in Final Fantasy 16.
So I think it was a summon in one of the earlier ones too. Like,
Oh, I'm sure it was. I just
Yeah.
remember the fight in 16 is cool.
I still haven't played 16.
It's good.
So some of this information I got from the American Museum of Natural History. So some of the key points behind some of these. And I have it for both Rock and Garuda. So according to the American Museum of Natural History, the legendary Rock was described as a giant bird large and strong enough to carry an elephant in its claws. It's a big bird. It wasn't yellow and didn't talk on Sesame Street. So it appears in Arabian legends and is even described by famous explorers and traders such as Marco Polo.
Interesting.
Which is fascinating. Yeah.
Which Marco Polo described the rock from explorers' tales as it was viewed as a true animal. So not something fiction.
Interesting.
Again, my fish is this big may have been a contributing factor, especially when you say, oh yeah, it's picking up these elephants.
Yeah.
Now, what are they? Dwarf elephants? If they're dwarf elephants, maybe I can understand. African elephant? Maybe not.
But when you're, crossing the Silk Road and all that and telling stories.
I caught a fish that was this big.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea I get from some of that. So, slightly exaggerated, or maybe not slightly in this case. But we do know big birds existed, and the site itself lists Madagascar's, I don't even know how to say this, Aepyornis. So, Aepyornis.
That was definitely not right.
I butchered that.
We have a history of butchering names on this show.
Again, it's another 10-foot bird.
So, I mean, what he was essentially describing is, I saw a big bird. Let's call it a rock. Make it easy to understand.
It's sturdy. I can build my house upon it. No kidding.
Maybe on the wingspan.
On the wings like eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're done.
So the Madagascar bird didn't fly. I'm calling it that.
Yeah, no, I understand why, but I don't really want to hear your pronunciation again.
No, I don't either. So it didn't fly. So that's already out the window.
Okay.
Because
Interesting.
and it also didn't have much talons to speak of because well, it's just,
Come here, elephant. Come here.
Come here. I'll run you down and then pick you up and jump.
Maybe it actually was Big Bird. He's just reformed.
Why it
by the time
needs-
he's on Sesame Street.
The thing is, it needs a rock's feather so it can jump.
Gotcha. Yeah,
That's how they see it flying.
That's how he did it. It's just
And then somehow Link from Legend of Zelda stole it, and then that's how he jumps.
it's all checking out. It's all true.
He didn't know how to jump before. He had to have a rock's feather to do it.
It's the only way. I mean, you got a feather that big.
Kind of hard not to.
Yeah.
Gotta fly. How do you fly? Well,
Maybe pole vaulted, yeah.
Yeah. So I see that bird as similar to the moa in New Zealand. Again, another 10-foot bird. They're both islands. But then you have Haast's eagle, which I think is probably more akin to what rock would be, which is known for picking up the moas, which were 10 foot tall, and feasting on them and children. Sorry, Maori people. But so some of that, is there a relation and were they connected? Well, New Zealand's all the way somewhere, and then you get the Silk Road, but we know that Silk Road connected with Japan. So did New Zealand and the Maori people somehow get connected with that? I don't hecking know.
There's
But-
probably a game out there that explains it.
Yeah.
Some sort of obscure JRPG that just... This is where the rock came from.
It seems like it'd be fit for a Persona game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, that's where it all started, is Persona.
yeah, and for the rock, its eggs were huge. Kind of reminds me of. I don't want to keep saying this for Legend of Zelda, but when you think of Link's Awakening,
Oh, the windfish
Yeah.
egg.
the windfish egg, obviously it's not a windfish. It's a little bit different from that, but.
Big
When you think of an egg that's Rock's egg, I think of that. But then if you think of stork and I keep thinking of Bombardier, the bird. I to me, that's a rock, especially when you see that with enemies in Legend of Zelda or other different enemies that you see. They typically chuck rocks. Or in different examples when I was looking up online, that's their eggs, and they just fall down as like boulders because they're huge and massive.
What's the bird from Wind Waker? It's not called Rock, is it? The one with the anger issue.
What, the Wind Waker?
Yeah, the Wind Waker, the big one that is in the Forsaken Fortress.
To be honest, I don't even remember its name.
Well, that's what I'm trying to wonder, because I don't think it's
You
Rock.
can look it up.
It's definitely not Rock, but that's kind of where my mind goes, because it's a big bird.
And then you smack it in the head.
Wind Waker bird guy.
Yep, that's
The Helmarock King. So there is Rock in there.
Yeah. Helmer Rock King, yeah.
But it has Helmet also in there because he's got the
He's a fancy rock.
King of the Rocks, really.
And then that gets to Garuda. And Garuda, I didn't know a whole lot of either, even less so than Rock, because, well, video games, Rock's feather. So Garuda is known in like anywhere from like Japan to India, in that kind of area, because of, well, the religion that it's associated with Hindu and with Buddhism. So an interesting thing that caught my attention when I was looking at the American History Museum thing is that this is their description of it. It's the mythic bird creature Garuda is often shown attacking Nagas.
Oh, interesting.
For over 3,000 years, stories of Garuda have been part of Hindu culture in India and Southeast Asia. Buddhism emerged 500 years later, and as it spread, so did the story of Garuda.
I guess, okay, so that leads me to maybe kind of an off question, where Garuda's portrayed as divine in that mythology, because we know that Nagas were to an extent, but they also had
and so were Garudas.
Interesting.
And they often fought.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they were more anthropomorphic, just like Nagas were. Again, kind of leaning into that more divine.
Humanoid.
And kind of with your discussion last week with the spirituality side of things. Especially because when you think of Nagas, and often they were often viewed as good,
but with the propensity
to do bad, whereas Garudas, well, they prayed and protected the people, as they were known to combat the poison.
Interesting.
That the Nagas could do, and they were sought for that reason. And they fought each other, which I don't know, especially with how we talked about Seraphim last week as potential fallen angels, and you have cherubim this week
protectors
as protectors and everything, and that go against the Nagas, which are potentially angels versus fallen angels in a battle. Kind of sounds similar.
Yeah.
When you think of it in one way. So, like, that caught my attention. I'm like, wait a second. That sounds super familiar. It's almost like, the Battle of End Times. Or, let's say this, spiritual warfare and the battles that happen on a day-to-day basis just in the spiritual realm.
Right.
Because, for those who don't know, that's definitely a real thing. It'll be... I'm planning on doing a series on spiritual warfare at some point in time in the future. But this is something that it stood out to me because it makes a lot of sense in my mind for how it's related. Especially when we think of it in terms of they take on more spiritual things in like the Nagas and like the Garuda, different things like that. They take on more of a spiritual side of things. Now, we know that cherubim appeared to people in the Bible. We see that with Adam and Eve. They see the cherubim guarding the Garden of Eden. We know that humans have come into contact with angels.
Mhm.
So you have the archangels, like Gabriel and some of the other named angels that you see within Scripture. And they're like, don't be afraid. Well, they
Too late.
oh, too bad. They already peed their pants. So they're already terrified. And it's like, why are they terrified? Well, it's because they might not have a human appearance.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, to understand like Gabriel and things like that, maybe they take on more of that anthropomorphic form because it's something they understand.
Mhm.
Kind of going back to, well, God will reveal things to you in ways that you can comprehend and understand. Are you going to listen to a chimera or something that's coming at, like, with a bunch of millions of eyes that's going...
Flaming wheel.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Are you going to listen to that and, when they tell you don't be afraid, are you going to not be afraid, or are you going to pee your pants?
Don't be afraid. Oh yeah, no problem. I'm not afraid. Yeah, right.
Just don't come any closer.
Yeah.
And especially when you go into like different realms. So, and it might seem like super unrealistic. Like, why are you talking about realms and different things like that in the world? Like, isn't this the human physical side of things the only true realm and possibility we're in? Well, yes and no, depending on like. So, what are dreams? What realm is that in? We have stories, we have narratives, we do things in our dreams, but they quote unquote don't exist. Or whatever. Or maybe they do. And then so how do we hear from different things? Like, how do we hear from God, like, physically? Like, we literally hear the voice of God, for example. Some people do. Or different aspects like that. There are intermixings in between the two that are just simply unexplainable.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you look at, Elisha with his servant, and they're going out there on the hillside or whatever, and Elisha prays that his servant would see. Like, he's getting a glimpse into this other realm where he sees the army out on the hills and tells him, like, look, God's got us. So he's seeing into this other realm there, too.
And it gives a different light, especially to, I think of Saul's conversion in the Bible, and the scales from his eyes fell off in more than one sense, I think.
Yep.
Because one, you're looking at things on a purely physical, human-to-human standpoint, and then the veil is lifted, and you see a lot more. You see God, like, you see people as God sees people.
Mm-hmm.
You see things that you wouldn't see before because you're seeing it through the eyes that God has given you. You're seeing things in a new perspective, a new light. Which also, like, that's why people can, banish demons and, cast out demons and things like that. They do, in fact, exist, whether we want to think they do or not, because it's unscientific. Trust me, I'm a science major. Like, I did the science. You can call me a doubting Thomas if you would. Like, I'm very much out. Show me the facts. Show me the car facts. I'm kidding. But it's something that does exist, and I think it's something that shouldn't be discredited, especially when we look into these aspects of cherubim, seraphim, any of the angels, different things like that. It's just something that's way beyond our human comprehension. It's something that far exceeds what we know, and which is why it's wrapped in mystery. And how would you describe these things? Well, it's nothing human. It's nothing that we know of because it's not from this realm. It's on a totally different level. So when we try to explain things like, for example, if we were to say, what's an angel to anybody any Joe Schmo on the street? They're like, yes, it's Cupid.
Yeah. Some dude with white wings and white robe.
Shoots a love arrow.
Yeah.
You think it's a flying human. It's a winged human. Basically, is what an angel turns out. They have a halo, maybe, perhaps. But in reality, that's not what angels are. It's just a mere depiction of it.
Mm-hmm.
What does a true angel look like? Well, you tell me. What does an angel look like to you?
Or let Daniel tell you, or Ezekiel, or Revelation,
Or any of those.
yeah.
But it's interesting because, like, you think, oh yeah, we don't see angels or anything like that today. That's just old news. But I'd argue that's not really the case. They do appear, just in ways that you may not expect them to. Like, for example, do we expect, like, angels to be basically at our side defending against the enemy as we're doing life? Well, no, because that's not what we were brought up thinking or anything like that. But in actuality, where spiritual warfare does happen, and there are times where you catch a stray arrow, and those arrows are poisoned, and we start to believe some of the lies and different things like that. It's all like emotional, internal, spiritual. It's that thing. It's not a physical battle. You can call it in the mind if you really want to, except it's more than that. Because it has some connection to the physical, one way or another, and that's why, like, sometimes, even in the sciences, stress can induce sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Much the same kind of thing. Although it's not the same kind of thing, but I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah, and even going along those lines, like, how many times does a diagnosis or some illness or something have absolutely no explanation? Even though everything appears like something's fine, like the person should be fine, but for whatever reason they're not. Well,
or on the opposite side of the spectrum, this person should not be alive right now, and yet miraculously they're somehow alive.
Yeah.
Like, you had a 0% chance of survival, and look, you're alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
You made a full recovery.
There's aspects of that appear in science, and science doesn't know how to explain it, because there's another layer to things that just goes unsaid or unseen. Well, mainly because you can't really physically see it. Things happen behind the scenes. Like, for example, prayer. Prayer has power because we're given the authority by God through prayer when we use His name. Whether that's to heal people, do things like that. Now, obviously, it doesn't happen all the time. Otherwise, people would make a much more bigger deal about it. But it's not for us to misuse. It's not for us to use for ourselves, for our own pride. It's not for that. It's to exemplify God and His provision and His care and everything to others.
Mm-hmm.
It's to lift God's name higher, not ours.
Yep.
Which is why I think most of the time you don't really see these healings and everything that people are like, well, why didn't God heal my, aunt or something from cancer, or, fill in the blank. And then everybody, like all the Christians, give a roundabout answer of saying, well, God had greater plans.
Yeah, it wasn't His will.
Wasn't in His will, which doesn't really comfort anybody. But it does kind of signify the complex nature behind it all and the mystery behind it all. It's like, why do some of these things happen? And to be honest, we don't know. Especially since God has plans that far reach beyond our own scope. So there's things that we may not see, but God does. So that's why, like, some of the prayers that I like to pray is like, Lord, help me see the world and see people as you see them. Help me to gain that scope of vision so I can understand what the plan is moving forward, because I can't see that on my own right now.
Yeah.
And so some of that ties into it. And I know I'm going on a big tangent about different things that we're not even talking about cherubim at this point, but I think the spiritual side of things, like we were talking about last week, has such a big impact that you even see in different mythologies as well,
Yep.
whether you realize it's a spiritual side or not. Like, we animate a lot of different things and give them different spirits or natures. So, for example, you have like Poseidon of the water. You animate Poseidon, for example, as like a spirit of the water.
Mm-hmm.
You have different aspects that you personify as like a spirit or different aspects of that. So spirituality is such a huge thing, especially in ancient culture, that we just simply flat out ignore today. So some of these places where some of these origins happen, for example, Griffins, I guess going back to what we were talking about before, started in a place that's super spiritual. Egypt, one of the most spiritual places like ever. Ancient Egypt specifically. Other places that are super spiritual out east. So India, Japan, different places like this have a heightened sense of spirituality.
Mhm.
So you see this with like the demons and everything that you see in Japan, or you see obviously the Nagas and the Garudas and different things like that with Hinduism and everything. Different, whether you want to call it reincarnations, different thing that they think of with that whole thing. It's another layer of that spirituality.
Yep.
Whereas in the West, it's not really seen that way.
Well, and that also brings up the idea of, as you know, we're talking about all these creatures and these different myths and different religions and whatnot. Like, you know, why are myths more prominent in the East than they are in the West? Well, there's that whole aspect of spirituality, you know, that myths are, there's storytelling, you know, aspects to try to explain something, whether it's a moral objective or whatever.
Whether it's moral or an actual being.
Yeah, trying to make sense of something that can't necessarily be seen. You know?
Yeah, and obviously, it's not to say that there aren't spiritual things in the West, because you do see this, especially with like Native Americans, and you see it with Thunderbirds, you know,
Which Native Americans historically are very spiritual.
Yeah, and that as well. But it's not written down in the same breadth as, say, what we do know about Hindu or different things like that, because we just probably humanity's part to blame for that, with expansion, and yeah, we'll not go there. That's its own separate issue, but it's not like they didn't exist, because in one way or another, people were spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because you cling to it. There has to be some foundation of that. There has to be a reason people are drawn to it. Otherwise, you would be completely ignorant and wouldn't think of it at all, ever. And you wouldn't see it anywhere in history. But yet there is a draw to this spiritual side. Why? And then you get things like cherubim, seraphim, different things like that, angels, and potential angels down into and living alongside humans, different things like that. It's a whole complicated mess.
Mm.
Obviously, we didn't live back then, so I couldn't tell you one way or another. Until somebody invents a time machine, can't tell you nothing definitive. Even if there was a time machine, I don't think I'd be able to come back, so I wouldn't be able to tell you anyways.
Everything would be a mess then.
Then I'd see dragons and they'd eat me. And I'm like, well, they exist. Look, it's so cool. And then you get blown to bits.
Just don't step on the fly.
Fly on wings like eagles, help me. But yeah. So I guess that's a whole spiel. I don't even know where I was going with that. I had a soapbox. I slipped on the soap, landed on the box. Now we're here.
Yeah.
Go
Griffins, they're awesome.
check out the Grand Rapids Griffins. I'm looking forward to it. Also looking forward to the Detroit Red Wings. Also looking forward to that season as well. Now we have nothing to talk about when it comes to the other. I guess we were gonna maybe talk about chimeras, but then we kind of lost the train of thought there. We'll talk about that next week.
There's Cyclops, because that ties into Griffins too, oddly.
Yeah, why not? We'll combine them.
Yeah.
Even though, like, Chimera is more, I would say Chimera is more akin to cherubim. And obviously with Nephilim, hello, Cyclops.
Right.
And giants, even though giants were also in the Bible, so.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of already talked about what classifies as a giant. What's giant? Are you 11 foot tall or are you 33 foot tall? Make us look like grasshoppers. But anyway, we're rambling, and before the computer craps out, probably gonna end this. So, without further ado, nice to talk with you guys.
To ramble on.
Ramble on. We had to think of an ending. Yeah, if you like to share with people and tell us next time to not go unprepared and wing it. But I guess it fits with Griffins, so yeah. Let's ride this out to the end of the episode and let's fly off stage.
Toodles.
See ya.